that what are the main components of a window-based application, right? So these were various components which we need. The outer one is called frame. The outermost is called frame. Just because I want to write them on the screen, they are called as label. These ones are called text fields, and these are just going to be called as buttons. Is that okay? So if I was to create a class, I'm going to just call it public. If nothing is visible, let me know if you want public class, let's say my calc or whatever you want to call it. Now that's your basic structure of your class, is that right? You create a class with public word, you have class and you followed by your class name. Within this we have public static void main, Effie, are you typing the code with me? Alex, are you typing the code with me? Okay. Do you all want to draw this first? If anybody wants to draw this, draw this. I don't, if you're not hearing what I'm saying, that's fine. That's thing is full. So, yep, that's fine. Florence, no, I'm just asking. I want to know how many people are typing, because when you are typing, your focus loses. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because you're more concentrating on writing down correct. So I just want to know who is typing, who's not. Florence, are you typing the code with me? Okay. I'm not saying don't do it. Does that make sense? I just want to know that don't make sure that your code is correct, because the code is still going to be open when I finish also. The idea is that you understand your lines. Okay, so that's your basic structure of your program, is that right? That's your basic Java structure. We have a class and we have got a public static void main in it. Because I need libraries, right? So import is going to be good afternoon. Here, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Why didn't I write import? Because I should know what libraries I'm going to need, right? And I did not write down the code yet. So I'm going to write down import as I include. Does that make sense? When we made a program earlier, we were using system out print line, right? For system out print line, I needed java.io.star because that was the basic input output, right? I don't need that at the moment because I'm not going to work on system out print line. And at the moment, I have not told you what I'm going to use. That's why I've stopped. I'm going to write down import in a minute, but I think I'm going back. I'm trying to retrace my steps. That have you understood what we write down in Java code? Is that okay? Okay. So that's your basic structure of a Java program. You have public class, and within that class, you make main. Is that right? Now, main is considered to be the starting point of your whole project. So even if you're going to have 20 classes in your project, does that make sense? You will have only one class with one main. Do you understand? Because if I make, my project is really big and I need so many classes or whatever for that, you can have as many as files you will have, as many as classes you will have, but we will only have one class with one main function in the whole project. Is that okay?
Main is your starting point.
Main is your starting point, right? Now, what happens is that I can write down the entire code of creating things in main, right? But then that means I have not created a class of my own, which is a frame. I have just put everything in main. So you won't be able to reuse, right? I want that this class is able to be used by someone else, or I can extend this functionality later on. Is that okay? Is that okay? To do that, I'm actually doing one more thing. I've closed my class. Is that right? I've closed my class and I've made another class here. Is that understandable? I've created a class, public class, use Calc. Is that right? And I've used this, which is separate. Is that right? If you were to use Calc, how will you use calculator? If you were to make it work, how would you make it work? I have not made calculator, right? But if I was to use calculator, how do you create a variable of something?
What is that? Somebody enter something?
Don't worry about how my calc is working. I just want to know, if I was to create an object of my calc, how will I create it? In your main, this is what you will write down. My calc, is that right? Calculator 1 is equal to new my calc. Is that okay? So if people wanted to create 3 calculators, they can create 3 calculators if they take 3 objects. Is that right? But at the moment, what they're doing is, I'm just creating an object of my class which I've created. Is that okay?
Why did you have to create 2 classes? You have my Calc and then use Calc.
Okay, I could do it like this as well, but then you guys are not getting the concept of why I am making a class. I took this class. If I make it like this, nothing changes. You're still gonna do in main this only. Is that right? You understand? If I was writing down everything in here, I will still be writing down. If my main was inside this, I'm still gonna create the object. But the whole idea is, in future, why are you putting everything here so that people can use it like this? If somebody else, let's say you have created that calculator, Simon wants to use it, or Misha wants to use it, you just give him that file, class file, without the name, and she can just use it by having it in that folder. She doesn't have to do anything.
As long as she imports the package.
There's no need to. As far as you're in the same folder, you don't have to import the package. Is that okay? So I can use your created calculator by just writing down this. Is that right? As far as I know the name of the class.
Yeah, exactly. But then you created another class called use Calc.
Because this is called, now if you give someone this file, they will have to take this out. Because this function, okay. When you give this project to someone, it is fine. Okay? When you're giving somebody this as a installable file, it is fine. But if you were asking somebody to use this code in their program, this is not fine because it already has name. That means they can't create name. You will have to give them the source code, isn't it? You will have to give them the source code. I don't want to give Nisha the source code. I only want to give her my calculator. So all you have to do is give her a class file, not the actual file. Right? But I can't give her the class file like this. If I want to give her that class file, I have to keep the main out of it. Is that okay? So there's a difference. If I put a slash here, that means this class is calculator, this class is using calculator. Use it. But when we write down general coding, we actually write down both the things in the same place. We are writing down both in the same place. But when we start writing down professional programs, we will not write down in the same file. We will never do that in the same file. We keep separate. It makes separate files. Look, this is how I would do it.
But each file will have the name.
No. This is what you would do. This one, here. I'm not going to even write. Let's make it more clearer. This is public class myCalc. Is that right? That is it. So you save this file as mycalc.java. Is that right? And I create another file. And here, public static void main. I should just copy that here. So in this file, all I will have is this. In my calc file, this is what I'm going to have. In use calc file, this is what I'm going to have. Is that okay? Is that okay? So this file stays as use calc. Is that okay? I've separated the files now. Do you understand? I've separated the two files. So if you were writing down, you can stop it as well if you want to. We can switch it off. If it is cold enough, we can switch it off. Okay, so this is, we've not made that file yet. We're just creating. So this is use calc, which is a Java code, right? You would be using a file called as mycalc. That's all. And we will create mycalc yet. We've not created mycalc. Is that right? Yeah. So in this file, what do I need now? I need to create this frame. I need to create this. How do I create a frame? I can go inside and create a frame here. F is equal to, right? Or we say my calculator has to have a frame. So we can just do extends frame. Yeah? I will, right, I will. And then I also want, we said there is a, you can extend properties from another class by writing down the keyword extend, right? So, but as soon as you say frame, that is a part of a library and it comes from a library called as AWT. So import java.awt.stump. Is that okay? Now I need to create, what does my frame needs? What does my frame contain? Label. So label, how many labels do you need? Label num1 and num2, right? 3 and result, right? Okay, result. So it has got L num, L. So 3 label boxes, right? I have label. I have just name conventionally called num1, num2 and result. And just because they are labels, I've put L in front to remind me that I've labeled like that. Because when I do text field, I'm going to also call them num1, num2. But just different. Is that right? So you've taken 3 labels and you've taken 3 text fields, right? You need button, so we're going to go button. How many buttons do I need? 5. So b add, b minus, b mults, b div. Is that okay? Yeah. Those are, and then instead of making B1, B2, which we can, it's no harm in that, but it's usually good to remember what buttons have you made. Just that. So that's what I need in my class. Is that right? Is that okay? Yeah. That's it. So now, whenever somebody would do this, they should actually create these buttons, right? But now we will have to create one function which is necessary, because we know that whenever you take an object of some class, like let's say we have taken it, I have to write down new this, isn't it? New label, is that right? But I can't do that here. If I do that here, computer will give you an error. The reason for that is when you are defining a class, that class does not have, I don't know whether somebody has created an object of this or not yet, isn't it? So you cannot actually create them. I mean, we are just assumption creating it that whenever somebody will create this class should have this, is that right? So there is a function which you will have to create, which are called as constructors, which have the same name as that of your function name, class name, sorry. All these variables which you are taking will be allocated memory inside it. Does that make sense? Yes?
Number one and number two by text field. We don't just create the buttons for each number.
Which number?
Well, I assume that you enter the number one and you enter the number two.
Yeah.
And then you create what you want to do with them, and that's it.
You want me to write down create a button for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We will do that later on. I don't want to make such a complicated calculator beforehand. Does that make sense? Because that needs a thought through. I'll talk about that in a minute, but that is a lot of work in the beginning. So I just want to create this smaller version of it first. Now here, all my labels will have to be allocated memory. Is that right? So now you can say here, this is what goes in the label. Is that right? This is what will be printed on the screen for label. L num2 is equal to new label and enter. You don't have to say enter, you can just say number 1, number 2 as well. It's just an I am creating that.
Is now my calc a function?
My calc is a function, and this function is a special function because it has got the same name as that of a class name. It cannot have a return type. It never has a return type. It does not say void at the, whenever we make any other function, we always write public void whatever. But for these functions, we never write them because they are special. They get automatically called when you create an object of your class. And the reason for putting everything, whatever you want, it's like we call them as initiation. However you want your class to start with, whatever you want to do, that should always go in a constructor. Is that okay? Now here L1, L number 1, L number 2 and L result. And is that right? So these are your 3 labels. I need to have my text field. Text field, usually when you are initializing a text field, you specify how much space you want. So 20 characters, let's say. Or 10 characters would do as well. Is that right? So we've created 3 labels, we've created 3 text fields. Is that right? Now what do we need to do? Your buttons. We add is equal to new button. And what do you want to write down on top is, this is what I want it to print on top, right? So is that right? And this one just says clear. Is that okay? So we've allocated the memory to all the labels, we've allocated memory to all the text fields, and we've allocated memory to all the buttons. Is that right? Now what is the next step? first of all, I need to add all these labels and buttons and the text fields in the frame. They're just created, right? But they have to be part of my frame. So I have to add all of them into my frame. Now before I add them to my frame, I need to see what layout does my frame require, so that I can put them into my frame. Is that right? Now you can do that with a grid or whichever layout you want to do, or with no layout and say set bounds. So you got number of ways of putting your buttons into the frame. I'm going to go with flow at the moment just to keep it simple. Otherwise I'll go with set bounds, but then set bounds will take a lot of precisioning. How do we want? Yeah, for the grid, no, we can't use grid because grid will make that label will that big. We don't want that. Does that make sense? So we can't use grid layout on this. We will have to use set bounds, or we can use flow, basically. Do you want me to use set bounds? I mean, I don't have a problem in using set bounds. So we'll have to say set layout. And if you're going to use no layout, you say set layout null. Your frame should not have any layout. Is that right? But before adding every one of them, I'll have to say L num1 dot set bounds. Is that right? L num2 dot set for each one of them. This is what you did last time as well, but this is what we'll in grid. It was just easy because we just created the grid. So T num1 dot set bounds. I'm going to write down the bounds in a minute. Just 2 and 2. This is how they're going to be. You will first put a label, then you're going to put a text field, then you're going to put another label, and then another text field. Is that right? So let's say if you are saying the label is yeah, I'm just trying to see how much I'm going to keep the same sizes. Maybe 100. 100 should be okay. 150, 60. I'm going to keep the same sizes for the rest too. And just change, I'm just going to change the y-axis 50 and 50. Is that okay? I've created the first label box and the text field, and then I've just copied and I've just changed the y-axis. Is that right? For the label number 2 and the text field number 2, I've just changed the y-axis. So x, y, width and height. Is that right? And then let's have your L result so that's again the same, and then you're gonna have to add your all 5 buttons basically, which is b add dot set bounds. It can only go after this. B dot minus B minus dot set bounds then no, we don't need this. Oh, we don't need them 100, isn't it? Probably need them small, but anyways. B minus B multi B div and B clear so we've put all of them in the, we've set the bounds, we've not actually added at the moment, so we will have to go, we've not added them, we've just set the bounds. So L num1 add text num1, now you add them in your frame. 2 and then 2 and then you say L result and then T add B add B minus add B multi B div and add B clear. Is that okay? So we've added all the, so in this function what have we done, we've memory allocated to all of them, then we said our frame should not use any layout, we set bounds for each one of them, and then we added all of them into frame, right? There are two more things need to be done, that my frame should have a size and my frame needs to be set to visible because by default it is hidden. So there are two things which need to be done, which is set visible true, right, and then set, sorry, be visible, because you've added everything in a frame but frame needs to be visible, right, and the frame needs to have a size. So I can have times, is that okay? So that's your, that I'm not writing down any more than this at the moment, is that okay? I'm gonna, I will do it in a minute. I will just do it, but I just want everybody to be able to see this, and then we'll make, right? So this is your frame. This is what you've created, right? This is your frame. You've created a frame which comes with these buttons. Does that make sense? You've created a frame which will come with this buttons. In this program, it's 11 o'clock, so we're keeping a 1 minute silence for people of the tower which got burned.
The ones listening.
The, the tower which got burned. So 1 minute.
take a picture of those?
Yes, Misha.
Can I take a picture of those rows? But you said the rows. Can I take a picture of those so I can just remember?
Values.
She's saving everything.
Yes, you can. Here.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want, yeah. Right.
Is that okay? So I have this one, which I sorry, you've not taken the picture.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 23 stores. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can you go back to
My calc.
why is the bounce being clear in the X 560? Why is it, can you scroll down please? Why is the big L? Can you scroll down to the front?
Sure. He wanted to scroll down.
Scroll down to the set size. Yeah, it's right
This
there.
is set size.
Yeah, I'm saying why is the 560 aspirated down the set size of 500? Why is the
Or you can you can make this as 700 because you can always enlarge the screen. So you won't be able to see it, but
the initial size?
the initial size will be smaller. You can make it bigger. Usually we should make this very accurate that the size comes out to be whatever. We've just done general. We've not been that accurate.
When you've got a layout like that, would you then start to know, a pencil in what position?
Yeah, you will. Once you start doing it professionally, you actually put it in a grid, isn't it? How you would want it. And
When you're
also,
doing it there, right? I was finding it really difficult to try to follow.
no, this is
positions.
difficult. This is difficult, but at the same time, people do not. Again, as an ID, if you were doing it in your HTML also, if you have to position something in your screen and it was accurate sizes, it's difficult to just visualize, right? But you will work with a visual tool where you draw a label box, you draw it, does that make sense? And then you just drag it where you don't want it.
And you know the position.
Yeah, they will. You don't. I mean, it will write down the
Oh, okay.
code for you that this is what the size and that would
So
be.
you have visual tools for Java. which
Yeah, you have NetBeans, you have Eclipse.
Oh, that's it.
Don't
That's-
forget about that.
Yeah, I haven't. They've not replied yet.
And that's like drag
Yeah,
and drop.
because we don't have AC account, isn't it?
No, that's like drag and drop.
Yeah, you just
Drag a button
yeah,
and
just
drop.
like you just click and you make this button, and the Java code is written for you for that. Again, that is very good tool, but that is only for people who know Java. Does that make sense? It doesn't write down the code. This is very simple. This code, if some software generates for you, it is fine. But what is important is that how do I add the functionality code? So this will become very easy when you work in an IDE. You just can click and the frame is there. You just drag and drop frames. You drag literally everything. Every object is draggable there. But the idea is what Java code needs to be written. If you are not aware of the Java coding, then it gets difficult. I want to start you guys with NetBeans because or the visual, but I personally think you need more time to understand this code before you go in NetBeans and work with a visual tool. Visual tool is good. It's because I won't need to know this code. It's a free. NetBeans is free. Eclipse is free. But there are more tools which are paid ones, but NetBeans is a very standard tool for this, which is free.
But which one is that? NetBeans or
I saw that.
NetBeans, I like NetBeans,
Can use like
but NetBeans is slightly heavy. Does that make sense? In terms of the IDE, it is heavy. Eclipse is lighter in itself. But NetBeans is a heavy program. Takes a lot of your memory while you open it.
Can it be used with PHP as well?
Which one?
Or Eclipse?
Eclipse can be used with PHP. NetBeans cannot be used with PHP. Because I think NetBeans has got higher support for different type of Java, basically all the frameworks of Java. And okay, but this is the file. So I've saved this one and I have saved this one as well. Now let's let me just open the CM.
How can you link both of them?
They are linked already. I don't have to link them.
Oh.
Look, in this code you are saying my calc. So this is it's gonna look for this file somewhere. Does that make sense? So
We do, what about action listener?
we will do that. We've not done that. We will do that. Um, where is this file? I'm just gonna put that in the right folder first so that K drive, web design, level 3, 1633. What day is today? 19th. 19th June 17. Because I think the files have gone in 12th June. Use calc and they are here. The files are here. Okay, this is the folder. So I'm going to set a path to, I'm going to go into this folder. So CD and folder name and K drive. I am in that folder. Is that right? I need to set path for so set path. Yeah. So in this folder now I should have these two files. Is that right? My calc and use calc. So Java C my calc dot Java. Or is it the button name is mult? Is it? No. It's not about the import. It's mult, not multi. And I think this is where extra I. Yeah, that was the only error. So it's compiled. Now my calc has compiled, right? Now if I try to run this file, you will get an error.
Yeah.
Because this does not have main, right? So it can't run. This cannot run. So I need to go to Java C, use calc.java. Is that right? That's compiled. Is that okay? I will run this file now. Use calc. Oh. Java use calc. What has got my number one? My position I think is 2 up. It needs to be brought down. But anyways, and number 2 result and all the buttons. Is that right? But obviously these buttons will not work yet. Nothing will work, right? We've not added any functionality.
All this circuit has just gone. I don't know why. There was electricity downstairs, but I don't think it's anything to do with it because the power is still there, it's only the data, right? Are you going on a break soon? No.
Probably after 15 minutes, yes. We'll go after 15 minutes for a break.
What's that mean? In 5 minutes you're going to go?
15 minutes we'll go.
15 minutes, okay. All right. Would you do me one favor? Who's going to the dark side? Because I haven't got my glasses. And can somebody just read the, oh, hang on. Can somebody read that? page I need to get. I just want to make sure I'm not.
Okay, if it doesn't work, we'll go for a break. And I know you want to check the switch, is it?
I may want to turn off the switch and
Okay. 15 minutes,
15 minutes.
right?
If you have like, let's say a package is large, let's suppose that you compile all of them.
Yeah, we will compile all of them. Yes.
Well, we're not going to do it like that.
No. We will learn how to create a package where the whole package gets compiled in one go. But don't forget that if you're writing on that many packages, you would be doing your testing with each class anyway, so they will be compiled. Do you understand? But yeah, I understand your point that if I have, then before you give it to somebody, yes, you would have compiled all the classes. There is a different way of doing it. We've not learned how to create packages, which is still far away concept. We'll talk about that. So I've closed that file, right? So I go back to my code. I think the starting 10 is 2, so maybe 20. That should be fine. But now I haven't added any functionality in this code, right? Now to add functionality, which is very important, you need two things. You need to know what kind of event are you going to capture, or what should your buttons be doing. Is that right? For doing that, for giving your code the ability to add the functionality, you implement a class called as action listener. Yeah, implements action listener, and that is available in, you import a library for that, java.awt.event.star. Yeah, so that's the for using the class action listener.
Previous wouldn't that have been ported everywhere?
No, because when you say star, it refers to only files. It does not refer to subfolders. Whereas in AW package, there is a subfolder called as event, right? So star just means all files. Does that make sense? Not the structure, So in here you are saying all the files in this now. Does that make sense? Yes.
Would you not have just put the events at the first one and called java.awt event rather than making a new one?
That is what I'm saying. I need the files in AWT as such, and I also need the files in a sub package which is event.
That's why you had to separate it into two different.
There are more. There are a number of them in AWT. We'll come down to when we need more. But AW, it's like this. You have a structure in here. Look, these are the files in bin, right? But if I say Java, I'm just trying to. Now, if I say JRE star, right, that will not refer to the files in this or in this. It will only refer to files here. Does that make sense? So when I said AW star, that referred to a folder called AWT and all the files in it. It did not go into the folder. But now I need libraries from the event, right? So more specific. So so that's how you write it down. You could have also gone, I don't have to write down star. Does that make sense? You don't have to write down star. You can actually specifically write down action listener. Do you understand? But otherwise I would be writing down frame, text field, button, all of them one by one. I don't want that. That's why I put star. Otherwise you can refer to individual classes as well. Does that make sense? But that's just time consuming. We just refer to let computer find it. Now once you've done this, now when you add action listener, you have to do 3 steps. What are those? Your class will have to have a function which is called action performed. As soon as you do implement action listener, my class can only implement action listener if it has a function which makes it an action listener. Does that make sense? There has to be something which makes it an action listener, right? And that function is called as public void action perform. Is that okay? This function, if you do not have this function, it will give you an error. It won't compile. I can show you this. I mean, Okay. No, I just want everybody to see. It will, when I compile this alone, does that make sense? This one, my calc is not abstract and does not override abstract method action performed in action listener. So you are saying that my class is an action listener, but it's like you cannot be an action listener until and unless you have this function. Does that make sense? So I have to have a function in my class. Is that okay? There's no need, it can be empty. Do you understand? It can be empty. It doesn't have to have anything, but it wouldn't compile until unless you have that function. And now this has one you can call it whatever. Call whatever you want to call that variable name, it doesn't matter. But the what happens is that when computer will, now you will never call this function, is that right? You never call this function. When you click on a button, any button, this function gets called automatically, isn't it? This function gets called automatically.
Does it matter when you put this slide? Does it matter if you put it at the top or at the bottom?
It has to be within your class, but it can be anywhere. You can write it down at the top, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you put it here. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter.
You say the name needs to be action performed?
The function is like this. It has to be public void action form. The name of the function has to be this.
List action events.
Now look, what happens is, what I'm trying to explain is, I do not, you are not the one who calls this function. You don't. Computer calls this function. Is that right? So when a computer calls that function, it passes some details to it. Which button clicked, which action happened, what action happened. Does that make sense? In your class, there could be 100 actions which can happen. You can click on any of them. You can change this, you can change this. Number of things can happen. You can click here, you can resize this. Number of things are happening, right? But what is exactly happening? So when computer calls this function, it passes that details to you, right? Those need to be captured or they are of type action event. That is the information which comes to you. So you are calling it details, I'm calling it A details. Now I can refer to A details in my code. Does it make sense? In my code, I can write down A details and say, but this is the most common function which we used the other day, which was get source. It tells me who caused it. Does that make sense? Who caused that event? Is that right? Yeah? We are at, this is action listener. My class is action listener.
No, to put it on
Buttons, yes.
Yeah.
Now my class is an action listener, right? But computer doesn't know whether all these objects need to have a listener. Does that make sense? If you want to add functionality to any of this, they all need to have a action listener, right? Now you have created, your class is an action listener, is that right? So you need to allocate that action listener to all these. Is that right? You can allocate different action listener for every button if you like, but that will be too much work. I will have to create 5 listeners if I want to allocate all different. Is that right? If you want to give each one of them a separate listener, then you will have to create 5 listener classes. Does that make sense? Which is too much work. That is why what we do is we add the same listener to all of them, isn't it? All the buttons we add the same listener. All of them have the same listener. Is that right? Okay. Now how do I add a listener to a button? Or so b add dot add action listener. Who is the action listener? What is the name of that action listener? My calc, isn't it? This is the name of your class, so that means that is action listener, right? So you are referring to yourself. So when you are referring to yourself, you just write down this. I am, right? So I am the action listener for this button. Does that make sense? I am. So this just so B minus dot add this. Is that right? Do you understand? Now it's like you have 5 buttons and they all need, it's like going in a company and we're saying there are 5 employees or there are 10 employees or there are 30 employees, right? You're saying all 30 employees need a manager, right? And what you've done is for 10 employees you've given the same manager. So I've allocated the same manager to all of them. Is that right? Now that means there is only one function which is going to get called every time everything happens on them. Is that right? The same function will get called, action performed. Is that okay? Do you understand this much? That when somebody clicks this or does whatever with this buttons, it's the same action perform function which will be called. Is that right? How do we know this? Let's do something here. I'm just gonna do system dot out. I should do that's fine. I am aware of that. I've done this. Is that okay? For using a system out print line, I would need, which otherwise I didn't needed it, but now I would need. So if I compile this file now, should be fine. And no, look, I don't have to compile that file again because I have not made any changes to that. So it's okay. Here, now if any button I click on, any of them, is that right? They will just, because it's the same action performed which is being called from there, I don't know which one was clicked. Is that right? I don't know which one was clicked. So I could modify my code to show me which one was clicked. There's something called as get source, which has that information. If I just say get a details dot get source is the function name. I'll have to compile this code again. Now if I press any of the buttons, it'll give you what button, is that right? It's a plus button. And if I click here, it's this one, right? It has this information, what button are you clicking, is that right? That whole A details captures what is happening, right? Now you would, in your code, if you want different things to happen when different buttons are clicked, then you will have to write that down with a coding yourself, isn't it? You will have to check a details is equal to b add. Is that right? So you can add different, sorry, dot get source. Dot get. So I can write down this if for all my different buttons. Is that right? What do you want to get done when each of that button is clicked? So you will have to repeat this if 5 times because you've got 5 buttons, right?
Do I have to, or is it possible to write it any easier way?
There is something called a switch, but again, I don't think that switch is shorter. Switch is as big as if, so.
But it's fine. I mean, if I've got thousands of buttons, I will not use switch them.
You will. You will have to, depends on what those buttons do. You still have to write it down. You will have to write down if you have 1,000 buttons, because if you want to, if it's the same thing happening on all those buttons, then it's a different thing. But if it's different thing happening at those clicks, you'll have to write down. You have to know which button was clicked. And you can only do that with the help of if.
I will need to write 1,000 times if.
Yes.
You copy and paste.
You copy paste, yes. So first was B add. The other one is B minus. The other one is B mult. B div.
When you put it out on the screen,
Be
it
clear.
gets worse. You put it out on the screen, right?
These are very clear.
It wasn't like the multi, it was like a bunch of.
Yeah, because it was the reason for that is because I'm converting that into a string. When I'm doing system out print line, that information is getting converted into a string, which this one is object. It is get source. Get source means get me who caused the event. It's an object equal. It is two. It is comparing two objects. So the object is B add. When I print, then it's different. Does that? Yeah. So I don't want to write down this now. I can take this line out. That was just to show you. I don't need this. So now your program has got all these ifs. Is that okay? Is that okay? So I will tell you what they need to do. I know what they need to do. I need to ask them to show. Obviously, nothing will happen at the moment because we've not written anything in that. Doesn't make sense. We've not written down anything in the. So what do you want when somebody clicks on add?
First, you need to get variables for the nouns.
We don't have to.
No? Just get the input from the user input.
What? There is number 1 and number 2. So I have to get number 1 and number 2 and put it where? Into the result. So for doing that, the result is called T result. Is that right? T result dot set text. That's the function, set text. To put anything into the text field, the function is set text. To get anything from the text box, it is get text. Is that right? So what do you want to get here is
num1 plus num2.
T num1 dot get text plus T num2 dot get text. Is that right? So you could do that as a separate variables also. You know, if you want to do, you could do integer here. N1 is equal to this. If that helps you, and then integer N2. Oh, it's okay. I mean, I'm just suggesting. I'm, which is a good idea because I'll say why in a minute. Here. You shouldn't be declaring N1 here. You should N1 N2 outside if, so that you can use it anywhere. N1 N2.
Oh, they're always going to be get text.
So it's always going to be
N1.
before the if as well.
You could do this always outside as well, because this is going to be the same in all the, if you want to add or multiply, they're going to be the same. Just the line will be different, which is here N1 minus N2, right? In multiplication, it is N1 times, and in divide, I'll not.
That's clear.
Okay. What is this? And here I want T num1 dot set text as nothing, pnum2 dot set text, nothing, and the result as well. T result. You want to clear all those boxes. So whatever somebody was writing down, that should get deleted. Yeah. Here. Is that okay? This will, but it's fine. Can we compile?
Useful, but it's fine.
Yeah, I know why it won't work, but it will work as in work. What is it saying?
You can't convert it in teams, and it means that you need to
It's a mean.
go back to use go back.
Okay, the error message starts from here. It says get text incompatible types. Is that right? The data type is incompatible. When you, whatever you write down in text field, the type is text, right? And I am trying to, I knew this was, and I just said that last. This one, we are trying to store this in a integer, which, but then get text is not integer. You know, the value which you get is string. So that's why it is not going to be able to convert that into integer. For that, what we need to do is, even though guys, this is the function. I'm so sorry, you will have to remember it like that. It's just too big. There's a class called as integer, and the function is parseInt.
And the other way around is to string.
Yeah, toString, and so you have to do.
I don't understand why it's not too easy. It's string.
This is how you convert a string to a number. That's why I was avoiding, and I was trying to put it directly into that set text, because then it would have been different. But our smart people, they know that it shouldn't be. It came up. You know, like if I write down the in directly, if I don't write all these lines like this, and just put the way I wrote earlier, it should have at least worked without an error. But it wouldn't have added. It would have just joined them at the end. Does that make sense? If you wrote 20 and 30, should have given you 2030. But anyways, this one is, so this is done. So you have in, so how you convert, this is the function. Integer is a class, is a library of all the functions for integer. Is that right? String has got its own library, and then you just do parse, p small, parse integer I capital, and whatever you will provide here in as a string, it will give you back a number. It will give you integer. So there is parse float, there is parse int. It depends on what do you want to convert it. Then it will give you an error. It will give you an NaN, not a number. It's called an error. It gives you an error. It will be an exception. Yeah. So. CLS. So the first two errors are gone. Is that right? The first two errors are gone now, because those were passed in. But now it's saying is set text only takes text, and you are giving me numbers. So
we need to do it all the way back
To string.
to string.
Don't do it easy way.
There's no easy way. I hope it is called toString. I'm not 100% sure of that.
No, it's not that.
I'm going to write it only once and then see whether it compiles. If it compiles correctly, then I'll write out the next one. Yep. No, it is. It likes it. I didn't write it down for all of them. Does that make sense? I just wanted to 100% check that it is fine. Then I can repeat it on all of them. Lot of code for creating a simple calc.
But I wanted to do the buttons, because the buttons you can set the integer.
No, no. Buttons are going to be more complex because you're putting a button, you will have to put number yourself. That means all that ifs.
That's fine.
That's fine. Then
That's fine.
that's what you're going to be doing next,
Because
anyways.
if you got a button with index 0 to 8, you can just put 1 line or 2 or 3. And
Yeah, check whatever the button is. You just take the whatever
exactly.
object.
And you take the index of the button and just do +1.
Yes, you're right. $34. I wrote 34 as a first. Can't divide 34 by 45. That's why 0. Does it make sense?
You will need to set it
So multiply will work, minus will work, and obviously 45 is more than 34, so minus 11. I've written 34. That's nobody can see because I think my pixel size is wrong for the above one. The first number is 34. 45. Sorry? Yeah. For division you have to, I mean obviously that's second that you should check, but that's clear. Yeah? Should I be allowed to type in result?
No.
So what should I do?
Disable. Set.
visible false.
If you make visible false, it will be not visible.
Set enable false.
Set enabled false. You can do set enabled false for your, let me change the size from here. I'm just trying to change the size. Three. I can add this line, what you just said. You can have T result. Yes, you are. Set enabled false. Yeah. Yeah. It's not enabled anymore, and 67 5 plus minus multiply and divide. Unclear. Yes, why not? Here the whole code is with you. You will have to type the whole code to stay, but I wouldn't want you to look at this code and write. First try writing down without looking at it. Does that make sense?
I'll memorize it first.
I mean, I can print the code and give it to you. Rather than you ask me to struggle to go up down, I'll print the code and give it to you. But the whole idea is that you try to write it down without looking first, as much as you can write it, and then go back on the code. Because you know, I mean, I know you were not here, but the rest, and Toby wasn't here, but rest has done for him. So at least how much do you remember how to write down the script? So that But did anybody wrote the code over the week?
Yeah, I do. You want to see the code that I wrote?
I will check your code right now. But if you didn't, then I need to get a stick.
Enjoy them.
Does it make sense? If you did not write this code over a week, then I need to get a stick for you. Because that's the only way I make you work. Well, I'm just kidding. Yes, ma'am. You're not actually. If you did not practice, then they tell me what needs to be. Because you cannot remember this if you did not go back and write the code. There's no way you will learn this. There's too much to learn. There's too much to remember also. Not just to learn, there's too much to remember also.
No, but today the explanation was helpful.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Because written the code just for the sake of written it doesn't make sense.